We're taking a look today at the Insta360 Link. This is the first webcam from Insta360, and in addition to being a great image quality webcam with a half-inch sensor and f-value of 1.8, it can capture in 4K or HDR 1080p video. It has superior build quality, tracking with gesture commands or software control, excellent auto or manual focus, and whiteboard, overhead, and desk view modes. In the box we get, you guessed it, paperwork. And here's the camera itself, which reminds me a lot of the DJI Osmo Pocket. And if it's built half as well as the Osmo Pocket, we're off to a great start. We get a 6-foot USB-C cable with adapter, more paperwork, and it also comes with a couple of promotional stickers for your lunchbox, a cleaning cloth for the lens, and 4 whiteboard position stickers. More on those later. Alright, here's the moment that you have all been patiently waiting for. Now let's be real, you all skipped to this point in the video, didn't you? But this is what you can expect the video quality of the Insta360 Link webcam to look like. And I think, honestly, this looks really good. Hands down the best webcam quality I've personally ever seen. Now I do have a couple of caveats with this. I've got pretty decent lighting set up in here, and I have manually configured all of the settings on this webcam, which, to be honest, I believe that's what this webcam is set up for. And for those of you who are wondering, I'm going to switch over into automatic mode for this webcam right now. And this is what the Insta360 Link looks like in full auto mode with no manual settings applied, which, in my opinion, doesn't look bad at all. This is right out of the box with no extra settings applied. But overall, I think if you have the time, the patience, and the willingness to do it, setting this camera up in manual settings is definitely the way to go. Take a look at the bokeh back here on my headphones, for example. This is the only webcam that I've ever seen that can do that. This camera does have amazing autofocus. Let's take a look at that now. Pretty impressive if you ask me. You can also take control and dial in with manual focus if you so choose. This is great for macro shots. I'm going to show you an example of that right now. And this is the minimal focus distance, which is about 3 inches away from the camera lens. Up to this point in the video, I've had the gimbal of the camera locked on me. I'm going to do some gesture commands, and I've got a picture-in-picture setup here of the camera so you can see what goes on when I send those gesture commands. And the first command is the palm command. So the camera has seen me, you saw it flash blue light, and it unlocked the gimbal, and now it should follow me as I move back and forth. And if I get up and move around the room, sorry I don't have a lot of room in here to show you a really big range of movement, but you can see the camera is following me and doing a pretty good job of it. So if I show my palm again, let me come over here, sit down, show my palm, and we see it took the command, and now it's locked, and if I move around, the camera is not going to follow me. So I'm going to unlock it again, and I'm going to back up and show you the zoom command. So most of these auto tracking webcams, if you show the L symbol, the camera zooms in all the way, and when you show the L symbol again, the camera zooms out. This one is a little bit more advanced than that. So what you do with this, if you show the L symbol, nothing happens. But if you push up, the camera zooms in. And if you pull down, the camera zooms back out. That's a pretty cool feature that gives you fine control over the zoom feature of the webcam. And another really great feature of this camera for presentations is whiteboard mode. But I've got to set up a whiteboard, and I've got to use these stickers to set up the whiteboard. These go in the corner of your whiteboard, and this will allow the camera to snap zoom to the whiteboard. So I've got my whiteboard orientation stickers in the corners of the whiteboard, and I've set up a little presentation over here. And if I move out of the way, you probably can't see what's going on very well over there. So I'm going to go up and do the gesture command to put this thing in whiteboard mode. And it's as easy as flashing the V sign. So here we go. And as you can see, it's taken the whiteboard full screen based on the position of these corner stickers here. So to go back into normal operation mode, I'm going to flash the V again. And there we go. Now we're back to normal. And from here, if I were giving a presentation, I could show my palm to have it lock on me, follow me around. And if I come back over here and want to get into another part of the presentation, I could flash the V symbol and it's going to lock onto the whiteboard. It's just that easy. So now let's take a look at the Insta360 Link controller software. And as I mentioned before, this is the software that I used on the image setting tab to control all of the settings for the camera to make this image look like this. Over here we've got our gimbal controls, and we are able to use our mouse to take control of the gimbal head of the camera and move it around as we see fit. And we can fine tune it by clicking these arrows and get things where we want them to be. And if I really like this as, say, my main image, I can add a preset position down here. So, and then I can rename it. I'm going to name this one main shot. Likewise, if I wanted to, say, zoom in on this light over here, I could set the gimbal to that position and zoom way in and zero in on that light. And I could set another position, and I'm going to rename this one. I'm going to rename this one light. So now if I click back on main shot, it's going to go to that preset. And if I click on light, it's going to go in on the light, and we can add more and more preset positions as we see fit. I'm going to save image settings for last, but over here we've got our in more settings we've got our gesture command settings, and we can turn off all gesture commands so that if I make a gesture command, it's not going to react to that. Or we can turn off each command individually. So if I want to turn off palm for auto tracking, I can do that here, but I can still control the camera via zoom commands. That's pretty handy to have. Here we've got AI zoom, and there are 3 modes: whole body, half body, and head. My room is just not big enough to do the whole body demonstration. I just am not going to be able to go far enough back for that, but I can do the half body. And what this is going to do is it's going to keep me framed from the torso up. So if I move back right now, it's going to not only lock on me, but it's going to zoom in at the same time and keep me in frame from here up. And if I switch over to head, it's going to do the same thing, but it's just going to try to keep my head in frame here. So that's pretty handy to have, depending on what kind of presentation you want to give. For anti-flicker, I've got it set on auto, and I've had no problems with that. You can set it to 50 or 60 hertz. I'm in North America, so I would go with 60 hertz. And this is where we can control the tracking speed of the gimbal. I've got it set on slow now. We can go to fast, and it's going to snap quicker, or we can go to normal, and I'm just going to leave it there. For camera focus, we can leave it on autofocus right now. Remember, I did that autofocus test earlier. But if we want to do manual focus, we can turn this on, and it gives us a slider bar where we can control the focus. And here we have streamer mode, and if we turn this on in OBS Studio, we will be able to go into 1080 mode and go up to 60 frames per second. And we can also, if the software allows, set it in portrait mode. And this is HDR. We can turn this on if we're in 1080 mode, which I'm actually not right now. I'm in 4K. We can mirror the image if we so choose. And that just mirrors the image, just like it says. And if you notice, the image brightened when we did that. Whenever we make a major change to the camera, it does take a second for it to get its settings back. Down here we have our firmware version, and if there is a new firmware upgrade available, there will be a red dot here. So that's one thing to keep on the lookout for. I've already updated the firmware, so everything's good to go here. But if there is a firmware update, it's really easy to do. And over here we have the real meat and potatoes of what makes this camera so great. But this is how you can really take advantage of upping the image quality of this camera. So you can take control of the ISO, you can take control of your shutter speed. Down here we can set our white balance. So this is really important if you've got like weird funky colored lighting in the background and then a different colored lighting in the foreground. So basically this is going to allow you to set your white balance. If I go to auto white balance on this, it's going to make my skin a little bit yellow here, and it's because I've got warm lighting up front and cool lighting in the background. So I'm going to set this to manual and dial in the white balance, and that right there, that's pretty close to what I look like. Down here we can take the brightness and contrast down or up. So if you want a high contrast image, so if you want a softer image, you can, for example, take the brightness up and the contrast down. If you want a more contrasty image, you can take the brightness down and the contrast up. You can take the saturation down or up, how you see fit. If you want a brighter image, and you can take the sharpness down or up. And if you get things way out of whack and you're not happy with any of those settings, you can just hit reset and start over. So I think we get a definite improvement in image quality when you dial everything in manually. But if you don't want to mess with anything, I think automatic looks okay. And down here we have tracking. We can click this on or off. It's the same as showing your palm and doing the palm command. So I've got it turned on now, and now I'll turn it off. This is for turning on our whiteboard mode within software, and I don't have my whiteboard set up back here right now, so that's not going to work. Here we have a overhead mode and a desk mode, and I'm going to show you how that works right now. So as you can see over here in my picture-in-picture, I've got the camera mounted horizontally instead of on top of a tripod. And the reason that I did this is because I wanted to show you both overhead mode and desk view mode. And down here, if we click on this one right here, this is overhead mode, and it's going to flip the gimbal down to point at a desk. So now it's pointing directly down, and this is going to work a lot better if I've got it on an extended boom and I've got it up a bit higher. But this gives you a good idea of how you can use this to take advantage of showing something on a desk on an overhead mode if you're making like instructional videos and things like that. If I click it again, it switches it off and goes back to the default mode. And this is desk view mode here. So if I click this, it's going to show what's on the desk. It's sort of a similar kind of view, but now I can use the gimbal control to dial in and show you what's happening on my desk here, so I can give you a presentation from my desktop. Pretty cool. And lastly, up here, if you click on this, it's going to pop out an applet that you can use that is a smaller quick control of the overall settings for this software. Up to this point in the video, I've been recording all audio with an external USB microphone, but now I'm doing a mic check of the built-in microphone of the Insta360 Link webcam. Mic check 1, 2, 3, mic check 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm a little bit further than arm's length away from the microphone. This room is not sound treated, but right now it's fairly quiet in here with no real background noise. Again, this is a test of the built-in microphone of the Insta360 Link webcam. Mic check 1, 2, 3, mic check 1, 2, 3, 4. So this entire video, I've recorded everything in 4K resolution, 25 frames per second. Now the camera can do more than 25 frames per second in H.264 mode, but I work in OBS, and in OBS it doesn't play well with H.264. You get delays and things like that. I'm recording this in MJPEG mode, and the people at Insta360 have said that they're working on 4K 30 for MJPEG. That's going to be coming in a firmware update, but at this time, it's just not available. I wanted to record this video in the highest resolution possible, so that's why it's recorded at 25 FPS, which I don't mind. I actually prefer low frame rates for video, as long as they don't drop under 24, or technically the 23.9 whatever. But all that aside, you can record in a higher frame rate in 1080 up to 60, I believe, but I've done this one in 4K, so at this point in time, before the firmware gets released, we're limited to 25 frames per second in MJPEG mode. So at this point, I think the burning question on everybody's mind has got to be, how does the Insta360 Link stack up against the Obsbot Tiny 4K? Well, let's take a look. This is the video quality of the Obsbot Tiny 4K. I've tried my best under manual settings to configure the video as good as I can to get the video to be as good as it can be against the Insta360 Link, and I don't want to burn any bridges with Obsbot, but this is definitely the best I could get under manual settings with this lighting. The Obsbot Tiny definitely has a much wider field of view, and it brings in a lot more of my background. That may or may not be your thing. I personally prefer a smaller field of view because the room that I'm filming in is not very big, and I don't want a lot of extra clutter showing up in the background. Here's what they look like side by side, and you can definitely tell that the Insta360 Link has a much larger sensor than the Obsbot Tiny 4K. The image of the Obsbot Tiny 4K isn't bad for webcam standards, but I think that the Insta360 Link definitely blows it away. As far as the autofocus speed on these cameras, this is what you can expect. Come on, Obsbot, you can do it. There we go. As far as tracking ability, this is what the two look like. I've set the Insta360 Link to slow, which I think matches the tracking speed of the Obsbot more closely. And I think the tracking of the Insta360 Link actually still is a little bit faster than the Obsbot. That's not a good or bad thing, it's just that one type of tracking is faster and snappier and the other is smoother. And if you want to see what both of these cameras look like in comparison to each other in full automatic mode, I'm going to switch over to that right now. And this is what they both look like in full auto mode. Both cameras are set completely in automatic mode right out of the box. No manual settings have been applied to either one of them. And I covered this in my Obsbot Tiny 4K video, but the Obsbot basically almost always needs to be set in manual exposure mode. Otherwise, this is what you get. As for my final thoughts, I really do love this camera. The image quality is the best I've seen from a webcam so far, even beating my Nexigo N970p at its best settings. As I mentioned before, the build quality reminds me a lot of the DJI Osmo Pocket, which is a good thing. This camera is in its infancy, so expect new firmware with additional features to come in the near future. I will be excited to see where Insta360 takes things. Currently, I have on good authority that they will be implementing a gimbal control that will be done just by dragging the preview image around in the Insta360 Link software. And I can't wait to give that a test. Anyway, I don't think there's much else I can say about the camera at this time, so thank you all so much for watching. That's it for now, and I'll see you next time.
It sound right, boys.